I spent a lot of time alone thinking. Our communications were lost. Many people inside there didn't know what was going on the outside. All they knew was that people were being delivered and that the levees broke. But we had no power, therefore we couldn't charge our batteries for cell phones, couldn't reach our families. Our families didn't know if we were safe or not. So that creates a lot of anxiety. Without televisions or radio, we just had to depend on the occasional National Guard coming by with a bullhorn, just kind of letting us know what happened. So we were just powerless. And I wasn't sure that I would get out because there was no hope at that point that we would ever get off. Day after day of people arriving and no one leaving, with the crowd becoming more and more uncivilized, and rightly so. Who wouldn't be under those conditions? I began to wonder if I would ever get out. And I prayed a lot. And I made a promise to God that if I got out, that I would do something more meaningful with my life. I realized that I hadn't made a difference in the world. And I wasn't very happy about that. So I made a vow that I would do something if I were able to get out. I just remember thinking, we've lost everything. I wasn't so much concerned about the items that we lost, the things. It was our entire social structure, our whole way of life. Everything that attached us to our past was gone. We had a few things upstairs, but basically, when your neighbors are gone, your grocer is gone, your mailman is gone, you can't even get mail. Everything in your life, it's like you've been transported to another planet and you're starting from scratch, but where do you start? So I thought that I would start with company, getting neighbors back into the neighborhood and trying to rebuild what we had. I did have communication with some of my neighbors. I was on the board of directors of our neighborhood association, and I had some of those email addresses. So we had some communications during all of this. And we decided as an association to send out snail mail letters, surveys, asking people if they were interested in coming back, what was their likelihood of returning. As you know, when you change your mailing address, the forwarding only lasts for 6 months. So it was critical that we reach these people within that 6-month period because their mail was being forwarded to wherever they had evacuated to. So I think that was very key in getting the neighborhood back together because we had a lot of responses. People just wanted to connect. So we set up a Yahoo group account where people could email in and just talk. I wanted to create an environment that people would feel comfortable in coming back. So I thought the first thing that I needed to do was create a hub of information where people could come and find out how to get a building permit, what contractors were not new to the neighborhood because we were being inundated with contractors from all over the place who were just coming in, taking money and leaving. So I had a list of plumbers, electricians, roofers that I had dealt with before that I wanted to share with my neighbors so that they would have good quality craftsmen to work with, professionals who were licensed in the state of Louisiana, who had been around for a while. And that's kind of how it started. I called a press conference and I opened my home as a resource center. And I wanted people to know that they could come here and I would help them any way that I could to get back into their home. There was just so much chaos and the government wasn't coming through with any information about anything. So the day after I opened my home and people learned about it, there was a line out the door of people. Some people just wanted to come and cry. Some people just wanted to tell their story or talk with another person or just share a story. Others wanted to know how to get a building permit, how to deal with the flood elevations. The flood maps hadn't been out yet, so they wanted to know how to determine whether or not they were below the floodplain. They wanted to see if they could get the street light turned on in front of their house. How could they get power? And our association held meetings weekly out in Jefferson Parish. We had Entergy come over and talk about Entergy power. How long would it be before we get power? Some things that we had to do within our own framework to actually receive the power. How did we get temporary power? What all the procedures were for permitting? So we informed the neighbors about how they could come back. And then I think with the house open, it just encouraged more people to know that it was a viable community and that they could come back if they wanted to. So I started serving meals here from the house from 10 to 2 every day. I served contractors, I served homeowners, because at the time, nothing was open. It took an hour to get in traffic, to go to Metairie, to get in line, to get the food. By this time, it's 2 hours later before the contractor gets back and half the day's gone. So I thought it would speed the process up if we just fed them right here in the neighborhood and they didn't have to leave. It also established a sense of community, you know, and so this house became the hub of information. People would give me information that they learned and I would share with them. We had computers set up. I had Cox Communication come in right away and run a temporary cable to my house so that I could have telephone lines and internet service. I bought a router, and so people could come over with their personal notebooks and they could get their emails, they could search the web, they could receive faxes. I had a fax machine. They could send faxes, which kind of sped up the process as well. It became a little business center. And that just went very well. Neighbors started coming back, and I remember people coming over, men who would come in who'd been gone for 4 or 5 months and had no idea what was going on in the neighborhood when they came to check on their property, and they heard that the Beacon of Hope was alive and well and that they should come over here and find out what's going on in the neighborhood. And you know, these people would come over and I'd hear them. They'd find out that the neighborhood was viable. People were returning. People were starting to come back. There was some activity here. And they'd call their wife and say, honey, we can come home. This neighborhood is going to come back. They just hadn't a clue because they were in Alexandria or Shreveport or Atlanta. And whenever they came back, they were just amazed at the activity that was going on here. Our neighborhood is a good example of great collaboration. I started the Beacon of Hope here in my home. We now have 11 centers serving 14 neighborhoods, and that includes 1 in the 9th Ward and 2 in Gentilly.